from the Guardian here, so expect some bias, but regardless. We also have a source from well, we have her own tweet. We'll look at that in a minute. Gina Carano suing Disney and Lucasfilm over Mandalorian firing with help from Elon Musk. Actually, I'll start by just reading her statement, shall I? Gina Carano on Twitter says, "Today is an important day for me. I'm filing a lawsuit against Lucasfilm and Disney. After my 20 years..." So, to clarify, Gina Carano was in The Mandalorian, which is one of the only Star Wars shows that Disney has made, which has actually been somewhat successful. By most reports I've heard, it's not great, but it's fine. And she was a character in that. She was also, I believe, an MMA fighter. So she's pretty butch, tough lady. And she's been in that. And she was let go. And it also seems like she has good politics. I've heard her referred to as based by at least one 8-bit picky. So that's I'm gonna take that as an authoritative source, and let's read on. She says, "After my 20 years of building a career from scratch and during the regime of former Disney CEO Bob Chapek, Lucasfilm made this statement on Twitter terminating me from The Mandalorian. Quote, Gina Carano is not currently employed by Lucasfilm and there are no plans for her to be in the future. Nevertheless, her social media posts denigrating people based on their cultural and religious identities are abhorrent and unacceptable," it says. She says, "Nothing could be further from the truth. The truth is I was being hunted down from everything I posted to every post I liked because I was not in line with the acceptable narrative of the time. My words were consistently twisted to demonize and dehumanize me as an alt-right-wing extremist. It was a bullying smear campaign aimed at silencing, destroying, and making an example out of me." This is a paragraph that could have been pulled forward from dozens, if not hundreds of people throughout the last 10 years. So this is not a new thing we're seeing here. It's just the latest iteration of it. However, Gina here may actually be able to do something about it, especially with, as you heard earlier, Elon's support. Possibly. Let's be optimistic. Continuing. She says, "The thing is, I never even used aggressive language. I shared thought-provoking quotes, pictures, memes, and occasionally I use my own words, not with aggression, but with respect and the occasional comedy to keep the mood light in dark times." The problem here, Gina, is... whilst this kind of explanation might be persuasive to some people in the middle of the culture war, the margin between people who hate you because you were cancelled, i.e. hate you because you are now a figure of hate, the margin between them and people who like you because you were cancelled, i.e. people who assume that because you were cancelled that you are based, which is actually a far safer assumption, by the way, and therefore like you regardless whether you were being nice or not, and frankly, think maybe you shouldn't have been nice. The margin between those two things is probably fairly small. They're the only ones that you'll be convincing by expressing that you were being, I was being good. Yeah, they don't care that you were being good. They wanted you deleted. And the people who see that that happened to you will like you regardless whether you were being nice or not. In fact, you being nice might be a downside. So I'm not sure this is a good idea, but it's that kind of like untactical, instinctive response that most people would have to this situation of being cancelled, where you start apologizing and making excuses and saying, "No, I didn't do the thing you're saying," to people who are imposing on you ridiculously unreasonable standards, to the extent that it's actually harmful in some ways to say, "I wasn't doing that, I would never do that," because what they're talking about is something that you very much should be allowed to do. Not just allowed, but should not be punished. Being aggressive about people on the internet should be allowed, and in fact is often necessary. So there's good arguments against doing this. Possibly what I would have done, Gina, is just keep it business, especially because this is going to be a lawsuit. Just keep it business. On Twitter, just say, "I view this as slanderous. I view this as libelous, and thus like something like that." If you're trying to protect your image from people thinking that you're a bigot, almost no one who thinks you're a bigot is going to read this and think anything other than, "Oh, she's just making excuses for bigotry. She's just an alt-right winger trying to trick us into liking her, even though she's a bigot." You're not going to convince them, I'm afraid. And this is, maybe she knows, but it's something that a lot of people need to be informed of. You are never going to turn the mob away from attacking you. They are not, in fact, attacking you because you did something wrong. They are attacking you because they believe you are vulnerable. And on a more ground level, they're attacking you because they were told to. She says, look with your own eyes at what I posted and ask yourself, for example, where did I compare Republicans to the Jewish people in the Holocaust? I didn't. Ask yourself why they were calling me a racist. Was there any merit behind that or history of it whatsoever? No. Look at why I was called a transphobe for making droid noises from Star Wars. Beep, bop, boop was obviously directed to the online bullies and did not in any way denigrate trans people. More of the same in this paragraph. It's, I respect you wanting to express the truth like that, but it's not actually going to help. And by the way, just want to clarify, in case this ends up being clipped into a video that ends up like doing the rounds, ends up going further than it would otherwise, let me quickly clarify. I only have the overlay on because it was paid for. I'm not hiding my face or anything like that. I feel like this may become a common issue in the clip videos because they reach more people usually than the streams themselves do. And if, for example, anything I said ever happened to become prominent and to spread well, like if I made a statement on this that filled out what a lot of people were thinking and they started sharing it and they just saw this, they might think that's kind of cringe. And yes, it is. But I'm doing it specifically because it's a stream reward for people that have contributed. The only language the mob knows is blood, exactly, Soldman. And if, Gina, you start saying, no, I'm not a nasty, I'm not a bad person, I was being nice, all they're going to see is their attacks are effective. You are vulnerable to their attacks. Now, if you decide not to be, if you decide nothing they say will shake my position, and you still want to clarify what you meant, that's fine. But I think if that's all you were doing, it would sound different to this. I do get the impression with this that that's not what you're doing, but perhaps I'm mistaken. I'll continue reading. Well, my questions about masks, lockdowns, and forced vaccines okay to ask and push the subject into the light? Of course they were. She says, should we have been allowed to publicly discuss those topics at a time without being harassed or censored? Absolutely. So that's better. A statement of principle. In defiance of the mob. That's what you need to do. That's better. Called her bluff and she actually did it. Remarkable. Hollywood says they support female representation and equal rights. Yes, they're lying. They support male inferiority and privilege of non-whites and or even in many cases non-Asians. It is in fact what has literally happened. Literally what has happened is that the meritocracy gradients that we have had in the past, individualistic, focused on how much use you are to the society and to the people around you, how valued you are, that meritocracy gradient has been in many cases completely inverted. And the people who have inverted it believe that race correlates with that merit. They believe that blacks are inferior, that Arabs are inferior, that women are inferior, and that therefore the nation can be sabotaged by pushing them to the forefront. I don't happen to believe that they are inferior, even if there are correlations. I focus on the individual, so I don't care about the groups. But the people who are doing this sabotage do think in terms of groups. They do care about races in terms of thinking most are inferior. They themselves believe that whites are superior in most ways and Asians are superior in many others. The people sabotaging our nations, pretending to be left-wing, they believe that. And so they have implemented sabotage policies based on that notion. Reversing the merit hierarchy is the sabotage. The means by which they're doing it is the belief that non-white and non-male are inferior. Just in case you're wondering if there's any new ways to express who the real bad guys are. It says Hollywood supports whores like Amber Turd. They've been struggling to even support her because she's so detestable. But generally, yes, I think you're correct. Artists do not sign away our rights, she says, as American citizens when we enter into employment. I have spoken to all my co-stars since I was fired, and there is nothing but care and kind words between us. I respect their right to free speech and do not have to think the same on every issue to be their friends and work with them, and I know they feel the same towards me. Well, that's nice to hear. Matthias says, artists, Americans, really? Yeah, I don't know about that. So let's not be unfair. She says, a couple months ago, Elon Musk tweeted that if you had been fired from using the platform X for exercising your right to free speech, he would like to offer these people legal representation. Fired from using the platform? Oh, I see. So if your use of the platform resulted in you being fired, then he would. Okay, fair enough. Quite the noble offer, she says, but never in my wildest dreams would I have thought anyone would take on my case against Lucasfilm or Disney. Still, I did respond back. I think I qualify, and thousands of people agreed, but I did not expect anything. To my surprise, she says, putting his money where his mouth is, good man. A few months ago, I received an email from a lawyer who had been hired by X to look into my story and many others. Turns out, after sending them as much information as I could gather these past few months, my now lawyers and X believe wholeheartedly in my case and are moving forward. Yes. Very good. Now, I'm not sure if it's going to succeed. It's Disney and Lucasfilm. It's big names, but are they so big anymore? Are they too big to fail? I'm really not sure. I suspect that 8-Bit is optimistic about this, and I would like to be as well. I'd very much like to be as well. Now, for 8-Bit to like any female, she must be some kind of female. She must have done some good stuff. So that works for me. Beatbun says Elon as an individual is probably worth more. Is probably more wealthy than Disney at this point. Well, in terms of his net value, his net worth, sorry, which I think is like 200 billion, that might be more. Let's have a look. Disney value, see if that works. Yeah, it is. It is in fact. Elon Musk value. Yeah, 200 billion. Elon Musk. Disney 183 billion. So yeah, Elon Musk himself individually is worth more than Disney. If you add on Lucasfilm, it might be. Well, Lucasfilm is part of Disney, isn't it? So I suppose it would be the same. Wait, 182 is. I'm not a stock expert, chat. Do tell me if I'm mistaken, but 182 billion, it says market capitalization. And then it says 99 USD today. Oh, that's per stock. Okay, sorry. I'm retarded. Yeah, okay. I got it. Yep, so Elon's worth more. That doesn't mean that Disney has less influence, but they might actually. Let's continue. She says, I would like to express my deepest gratitude and thank you to Elon Musk and X for giving me an opportunity to bring my case to light. As for me, she says, I would love to pick up where I left off and continue my journey of creating and participating in storytelling, which is my utmost passion and everything I worked so hard for. It's been difficult to move forward with the lies and labels stuck on me, backed and encouraged by the most powerful entertainment company in the world. I'm grateful someone has come to my defense in such a powerful way to look forward to clearing my name. She says, thank you to all the people who have supported me and made your voices heard. I pray God blesses each and every one of you, she says. So let's make it very clear that Gina Carano, even if the lawsuit goes through, unfortunately, I don't think you can ever clear your name because the people who have said these things about you do not believe them based on what is true. They believe them based on existing bias, saturation of information, and the desire to continue cancelling you. Partly also your categorization as a right-winger. What you are left with now, Miss Carano, I'm sorry to say, is a venture through the less well-trodden paths of the currently novitiate right-wing media industry. If you continue on the path that you're on now, you may be one of the biggest movie stars in 10 to 15 years, or at least bigger than you are now. Because I think culture is going to switch around a lot. And I think if you continue like this, you will be picked up by people who want to make movies in that new cultural vein. Yeah, that's what's going to have to happen now. Libs of TikTok asks, Elon, can you buy Disney and fix it? And Elon goes, I don't think he's made money back from Twitter yet, to be honest. So I don't know if that's a good idea. The actor who was fired from the Star Wars show after abhorrent social media posts, says The Guardian, is filing a lawsuit funded by the ex-owner. Gina Carano is suing Disney and Lucasfilm over her firing from the TV show The Mandalorian with help from Elon Musk. The MMA fighter turned actor who played Cara Dune in the Star Wars series was accused of denigrating people based on their cultural and religious identities on social media in posts that were called abhorrent and unacceptable. I'm curious what these posts were, but of course these guys don't have fashion show me, are they? Carano had used her online presence to share a post that implied that being a Republican is similar to being Jewish during Nazi Germany, ridicule mask-wearing during the worst days of COVID-19, and spread conspiracy theories over the 2020 election. Thanks to The Guardian for that, yes, in fact, biased account. Being Republicans being similar to being Jewish during Nazi Germany, there are similarities, but they're not that strong. Ridicule mask-wearing during the worst days of COVID-19, yeah, mask-wearing was... Let's just go over this again quickly. Nowhere near as effective as was being claimed, but was not totally ineffective either. If used properly, it would probably have helped a little bit. But no one used it properly, and therefore it was usually worse than not wearing masks. And there is some evidence that Fauci knew that and advocated it anyway. So even wearing the masks was probably a bad idea overall. On that much of a scale. But when it became mandatory, that was stupid and evil beyond belief, especially for children. COVID-19 was not the world-ending virus we were promised. It was actually kind of pathetic. Yes, some people have lost relatives to it, but I'm talking objectively here. I'm talking pragmatically. Compared to other great plagues in history, it was kind of pathetic. And then obviously the 2020 election thing, what they say as conspiracy theories, yes, there was a conspiracy. There were in fact multiple conspiracies, for which there is plentiful evidence. After a long-running fan campaign, she was removed from the show in 2021 and later dropped by her agency UTA. Quote, "The truth is I was being hunted down from everything I posted to every post I liked, because I was not in line with the acceptable narrative of the time," she wrote on Twitter. I'll skip over the bits that just explain things we already know. Carano claims she was harassed and defamed for having right-wing opinions and refusing to conform to those held by Disney and Lucasfilm. She also claims that her male co-stars were allowed to post derogatory statements about Republicans without punishment. Yeah, no doubt about that. I'm sure they were. Carano is claiming wrongful discharge and sexual discrimination, seeking $75,000 in damages and a court order that would reinstate her on the hit series. Ooh, that's interesting. That would be weird. Can you imagine her coming back to the set when she has been legally forcibly reinstated onto the show after being fired for having wrongthink? Wouldn't that be amazing? She would not be treated fairly on the show. The writers would kill off her character as soon as they possibly could, but it would be kind of funny. 75,000 in damages, that's not very much, honestly. Like, what Disney has done here could have destroyed her entire acting career. She could be asking for a lot more than that. She'd be asking for millions, I would have thought. The sexual discrimination thing, she probably would rather not have to make it about that, but she's doing it just to hurt them, which is, yeah, whatever. I can see it. The Field says that the fans didn't watch Star Wars, didn't buy Star Wars merch, didn't play Star Wars games, didn't read Star Wars books, and the campaign was atting key individuals on the Twitter. No doubt of that whatsoever. I, in fact, assumed that without even mentioning it. But yes, it's worth mentioning that. Yeah, I don't think the reinstatement would happen. I don't think she should want it to happen either. Odar says a larger sum may dissuade a jury from siding with her, as they might think she's just doing it for the money. That's fair, but I think she could argue it. Yeah, Zane, I expect it's the same all around. Thank you, Kaiserholt, who says, Disney plays the Imperial March every time Carano's character has a scene, but then I really like the Imperial March. Yeah, Imperial March is a great piece of music. The suit details that Carano was required by Disney to meet with a representative from the LGBTQ plus group GLAAD after online behavior that was seen as anti-trans, yet she refused. Good for her. She was then asked to meet with a group of LGBTQ plus Disney employees, but again refused and was fired soon after. Yeah, if they're going to try and re-educate you, that's not really that good, is it? And that is then firing you for your political beliefs. Unfortunately, it's the kind of thing where, like, okay, you're an employer, you've got a bunch of employees, And one of them says, I refuse to work with that employee because of what they are, because they have blue eyes. I refuse to work with them because they have blue eyes. Now, at that point, you're in kind of a bind. Does that opinion they hold count as protected? Do the blue eyes count as protected? Can you allow these people to keep working in the same company without them ever interacting with each other? Now, I understand what way you might be saying the analogy is wrong. Gina would never have said, I refuse to work with that person because they're LGBT or something. But Disney was saying, on this occasion, you have to go over there and work with these people. As your employer, I'm saying you have to go and work with this group of people. And Gina said no. So it is analogous in that case. Now, the problem with this analogy, again, is that Disney may have been deliberately doing that because they knew that they could say, well, we're firing her for disobeying us, for refusing to work with people on the basis of a protected characteristic. In the same way that if one of your employees said, I won't work with her, she has blue eyes, I won't work with him, he's Christian, I won't work with them, they're tall. If they said that kind of stuff, you'd be in a difficult position. Maybe you would fire them, maybe you'd want to fire them. Not sure you'd be allowed to. There's all kinds of laws you'd have to look into on that. But it would be difficult, and I think there could be some basis for firing them for that, especially if you say, hey, can you do this thing, something that they're employed to do, and they say no, because the person I refuse to work with is working on it as well. If they are refusing your instructions as part of their work, their job description, a reasonable job instruction, then what do? You say, oh, okay, well, then I have to fire you. So from a purely corporate perspective, purely by the law, Disney might have a good case there. However, it wasn't just, can you do this thing which is part of your job description? I expect that what they were asking her to do with these groups was not necessary for her job, was not a part of her job, and if you look at it with a more human eye, was actually just a re-education and like struggle session. That's probably where the lawyers will have to argue. Probably what they'll have to argue, or something like it. Because, tough one. AC says, my response would be, thanks for informing me. Instead of letting this affect your productivity, I'll move you to a team where you don't have to be forced to associate with people you don't want to, but I expect an increase of productivity because of this. Maybe that would work. Say you don't have a second team. Say it's just one team. Like, I get where you're coming from, AC. There are alternatives in some situations, but then I'll change the analogy to one where there are not alternatives, and we still have to answer the question because it is still about that principle. AC says you can't force people who are actually bigoted against each other to cooperate. No, I'm not saying you necessarily should, but it is a difficult situation, and I'm not sure that there is a good answer. But I could see an employer being able to defend themselves saying, well, they refuse to do their job. You know, even if the reason for that is because they refuse to work with this person for this reason. In this case, they didn't send her to work with Democrats. They didn't send her to talk to a Democrat group or work with a Democrat NGO, which is a political position. And that's not something that you could easily say, well, she refused to engage with our politics, therefore we had to fire her. No, they said, go and work with LGBT groups because that's sexuality and other shit, which is, unfortunately, whether it should or shouldn't be, they are protected characteristics under US law, as far as I know. I would not be surprised if they did that deliberately. If Disney maybe even has this as a formula, as a strategy they've used dozens of times, where they just ask you to talk to a group. Maybe they word it in a way or they organize it in a way that it is relevant to your job. They ask you to go to this group and you know it's about re-education. And if you go there, you will essentially be forced to change your position or told not so subtly, you must change your position, put into a struggle session, beaten down by these people and made to agree. And if you whatever happens then is whatever happens then, but they expect that you will refuse and then they can fire you on the basis of something that they can then argue was part of your job description in court and on the basis of protected characteristics rather than something unprotected, which is what they actually are trying to do with the ideology. Maybe in those cases, it's better to go to the struggle session and either ignore them as they're talking or, well, just don't engage, or just disagree, or chad your way through it. But that takes courage, and it wastes your time as well. And they'll just do something else at that point. So, yeah, I don't know what the solution is there, but this might be a challenge in the lawsuit. So best of luck to her, but Disney may be able to worm their way out of it. The suit refers to Disney and Lucasfilm as using bullying, discriminatory, and retaliatory actions. In 2023, Musk had pledged to help anyone who had faced employment discrimination over what they posted on the platform. In a statement, X's head of business operations, Joe Benarock, said, "As a sign of X Corp's commitment to free speech, we're proud to provide financial support for Gina Carano's lawsuit, empowering her to seek vindication of her free speech rights on X and the ability to work without bullying, harassment, or discrimination." Thiel says, in California, thanks to the filthy commies infiltrating Hollywood, viewpoint discrimination is illegal, meaning that Disney firing her for anything at all political she said is illegal. Interesting. Okay. Whether that's the right policy or not, it might well help her here. I'm not sure where Disney is actually legally instantiated. Is it in California or is it in Florida? Maybe the parks aspect of their business is in Florida and the media aspect is in California? Not sure. Carano wrote that she had the deepest gratitude for Musk assisting her in the case. Quote, "I'm grateful someone has come to my defense in such a powerful way and look forward to clearing my name," she added. Studios are California, yeah. Headquarters are California, okay. If she would fire him from in California, it won't matter. If it's California, and if it's anywhere near a city, I would not doubt that they'll be so biased it won't work anyway. Yes, Zane, I know that it's their own corporation. They're still owned by the same parent company, though, and I don't know if it's a legal dispute. I don't know whether that bubbles all the way up to the parent company or whether it goes to the under company. I guess a bit of both. I guess it's not exact. She would have been working in Hollywood. It's CA law. That's true. If she was working in Hollywood when it happened. Yeah, that's a good point. That would make sense. They would at least be referencing California law for the employment stuff. That's true. Since her firing from the show, Carano has partnered with Ben Shapiro's right-wing site, the Daily Wire, to make the Western terror on the prairie. There you go. This is what I said she should be doing. Yeah, good for her. Fucking Ben Shapiro, I don't care. Net detriment, if anything, but at least it's not leftist-made media. But you can see what they're doing in this paragraph. They're trying to establish not only that she is right-wing, that she works with others that are right-wing, and then establish here, very blatantly, a positive connection where she says she likes Lauren Fox, and then defame Lawrence Fox in the article. Legal battles do not determine truth. They only determine truth in the context of that legal battle. Outside of that legal battle, they should usually correlate with the truth, but they aren't always true. It may be that they are, but you just can't prove it. Field says the jury selection process might lead to a more just result than you might think. See, the Johnny Depp trial, fair, but the Johnny Depp trial was very clear cut. This one's more nuanced, and the Amber Heard was such an unpleasant person, but people like Disney, even with all the things they've done, especially the kind of people you'd find in a city in California, like Disney, I expect. So, I'm not sure about that. We'll see. Anyway, that is the Gina Carano story. Now, 8-Bit, if there's anything else on the story you think we should cover, if I've missed something, now is the time to let me know. Otherwise, we shall move on.